but he only got sentenced to 7 years.
Been in jail over and over for it up to this.
Welcome to U.S. Homeless Stories. In the dim back streets of Philadelphia, life flickers between fragile hope and deep despair. U.S. Homeless Stories brings you raw truth from Zombie City, a land once alive with promise, industry, and the American dream's beat. What pains hide in the shadows of the city of brotherly love, where historic icons tower, yet lives quietly unravel below. It's heartbreaking. Democracy's birthplace shelters forgotten corners, where folks hunch under addiction's heavy weight, shuffling through neglect amid gleaming billion-dollar towers. Freedom's streets echo the quiet desperation of the overlooked, their survival a daily, raw fight in a system that too often looks away. In 2024, 5,191 souls faced homelessness in Philadelphia, a 10% rise per Pew Charitable Trusts. Unsheltered hit 976, with 35% clustered in Kensington, says Philadelphia Citizen 2025. These aren't stats. They're a city's aching cry for compassion before more dreams fade. Ready to confront it? 1. The homelessness crisis in Kensington. Kensington's homelessness crisis isn't just the result of failed policies. It is a deeply human story written on every corner of the neighborhood. In 2024 and 2025, Philadelphia launched wave after wave of public cleanups, removing tents and fencing sidewalks, but the truth lingered in plain sight. Nothing lasting changed. People weren't helped. They were simply pushed into darker, quieter alleys where no one had to witness their struggle. After each cleanup, displaced individuals slowly reappeared beneath the L tracks, behind shuttered shops, or near abandoned factories. Many avoided shelters not because they wanted to live outside, but because shelters often meant losing belongings, being separated from partners, or surrendering the last pieces of dignity they still held. For many, the streets felt less frightening than the systems meant to protect them. Families nearby described their heartbreak as children walked to school past needles and torn blankets, while local shop owners quietly admitted the rise in petty theft, not out of malice, but out of raw human desperation. Kensington wasn't just struggling, it was splitting open, revealing wounds that could not be bandaged with temporary cleanups or camera-ready announcements. Every new city operation promised change, yet each one faded within weeks, deepening mistrust and leaving residents to wonder why the same cycle repeated again and again. Without long-term housing, mental health support, and true pathways back to stability, no cleanup could ever heal Kensington's pain. If these stories touch you, stay with us as we uncover the truths others ignore. Hit subscribe to U.S. Homeless Stories so you never miss the real human stories behind America's toughest realities. 2. Kensington, America's zombie city. Kensington isn't just a neighborhood in crisis. It feels like a place suspended between survival and abandonment, where people move slowly through cold streets carrying a weight most of us will never fully understand. The first thing you notice isn't the noise. It's the silence, the heavy kind that comes from exhaustion, fear, and years spent trying to hold on. You see men and women leaning against brick walls, not because they want to, but because their bodies are simply too tired to keep fighting. Hands tremble from hunger and withdrawal. Eyes stare past the crowd, searching for something that still feels human. Kensington doesn't hide its truth. It shows it unfiltered to anyone brave enough to really look. Many of the people trapped here lived ordinary American lives once. Some raised kids, worked steady jobs, or cared for family members. Others were students or factory workers before a layoff, a medical crisis, or a traumatic loss pushed them into a downward spiral they couldn't escape. Their voices crack when they talk about the past, not because they've given up, but because they remember who they used to be. They're not asking for miracles. They're asking for a chance, a moment of dignity. But with shelters overcrowded, strict rules separating couples and families, and very little mental health support, many choose the streets because it's the only place they can stay together, keep their belongings, and feel some control over their lives. The hardest part to witness is the teenagers. Young faces wandering with backpacks, sharing thin blankets, trying to smile through fear they don't have the words to describe. They're not reckless. They're victims of systems that failed long before they ever stepped onto these streets. Their laughter sounds out of place here, too bright for the darkness around them. And that contrast is what hurts most. At U.S. Homeless Stories, walking through Kensington feels like standing at the center of America's forgotten heartbeat. These aren't scenes. They're real people fighting to be seen, heard, and remembered. Kensington isn't beyond saving. It's waiting for compassion strong enough to reach it. Which part of Kensington's reality hit you the hardest, and why? Share your thoughts below. I read every comment. And if you want to follow more real stories from America's hidden corners, make sure to subscribe to U.S. Homeless Stories so you never miss what truly happens behind the headlines. 3. The xylazine zombie drug. The rise of xylazine in Kensington has pushed the community into one of its darkest chapters. This veterinary sedative was never meant for people, yet it now saturates the street supply so deeply that most users have no idea they're consuming it. When mixed with fentanyl, it forces the body into long, motionless states, people freezing in place, slumping against walls, or collapsing on the sidewalk. These aren't shocking scenes. They're signs of a system stretched past its breaking point, leaving vulnerable lives without real protection. First responders describe xylazine-related wounds as some of the most severe they've ever treated. Fast-spreading, painful, and incredibly difficult to heal. Narcan can reverse fentanyl, but it does nothing against xylazine, making every emergency call more complicated and dangerous. By 2025, more than 30% of Philadelphia's overdose samples contain xylazine, showing just how deeply this chemical has permeated the supply. People don't choose it. They're trapped in a market where harmful additives spread faster than help can reach them. As treatment centers overflow and resources thin out, the damage accelerates. Many go hours or even days drifting in and out of consciousness, missing meals, medical care, and any chance at stability. Behind every still body is not a zombie, but a human being caught in a crisis they never asked for. A reminder that addiction is not a moral failure, but a symptom of unmet needs and broken systems. Why do you think dangerous additives like xylazine spread so quickly in vulnerable neighborhoods? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. And if you want to follow the real, unfiltered stories happening across America, hit subscribe to U.S. Homeless Stories to stay connected. 4. Inside the streets, occupied by addicts. Inside Kensington's addiction-scarred streets, the suffering doesn't just appear, it hangs in the air like a weight you can't shake off. Beneath the L tracks, you see a community shaped by years of trauma, poverty, mental health gaps, and a system unable to reach those who slipped through its cracks. Even with new 2225 programs like the Wellness Court and expanded outreach vans, the reality remains unfiltered and harsh. People gather near abandoned row homes, under bridges, and along dim sidewalks, battling a drug supply so unpredictable that collapse can happen at any moment. Withdrawals twist bodies with unbearable tension, while others wander with restless steps, trying to quiet the noise of memories they can't escape. Outreach workers now expect multiple overdoses per person each week, relying heavily on Narcan teams rushing between emergencies. Across these blocks, small clusters form, groups built not from blood, but from survival. They share blankets to fight the cold, guard each other's belongings, and split whatever food or water they can find. These fragile bonds often replace the support systems lost to eviction, broken relationships, or years of instability. Even in the darkest spaces, a thin thread of humanity keeps people from disappearing completely. Kensington's streets reveal an uncomfortable truth. Addiction here isn't a single choice. It's the final outcome of long-term neglect, economic hardship, and untreated emotional wounds. The crisis doesn't fade just because the city cleans a block or launches another program. It lives in the spaces society rarely looks at. If this honest look into America's unseen reality opens your eyes, hit subscribe to U.S. Homeless Stories so more people can understand what's truly happening on the streets we often ignore. 5. Beneath the billion-dollar buildings, lie lives on the brink of collapse. Beneath Philadelphia's billion-dollar skyline, a different city exists. One that doesn't shimmer under neon lights or appear in real estate ads, but breathes quietly through the struggles of people trying to hold on. Luxury towers rise with glass walls reflecting the promise of progress. Yet just blocks away, cracked sidewalks, aging row homes, and families packing their lives into bags reveal a truth the skyline can't hide. In 2025, rents continue climbing at a pace that outstrips wages, turning daily life into a silent battle, where even the smallest setback, a cut in work hours, a hospital bill, a broken car, can send someone spiraling toward homelessness. Shelters reach capacity long before nightfall. Transitional housing remains scarce, and food banks across North Philadelphia report rising demand as inflation eats away at already stretched budgets. For many who have lived here their entire lives, the city they once felt proud of now feels like a tightening grip, pushing them toward the margins, while wealth inches closer to their doorsteps, but never truly enters their world. Inside this hidden struggle is Denise, a single mother who once held a steady clerical job and believed she was safely rooted in the middle class. When her company downsized, the loss of income collided with rising rent, draining her savings and her sense of stability. Nowadays, she sleeps in her car some nights, at relatives' homes on others, trying to keep her kids in school, and pretending she isn't breaking inside every time she whispers, "Everything will be okay." Her story isn't dramatic. It's painfully ordinary, shared by countless families who slip through the cracks because the safety nets beneath them have thinned to threads. Philadelphia's skyline keeps reaching upward, but the stories beneath it remind us that height doesn't equal progress if people at ground level are sinking. The city stands at a crossroads, where growth without compassion no longer looks like success. It looks like abandonment. What do you think causes a city to rise so high, while so many lives fall through its foundations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to continue exploring the real stories unfolding across America, hit subscribe to US Homeless Stories so you never miss what comes next. 6. When the streets become the last place to live. When the streets become the last place someone can live, Philadelphia's crisis stops being abstract and becomes painfully human. In 2025, outreach teams expanded their patrols, warming centers extended hours, and short-term motel programs offered temporary relief. These efforts helped reduce Kensington's unsheltered population from over 900 to around 600, yet the reality beneath the L-tracks remains harsh. Tents patched with tape lean against cold steel beams, cardboard replaces flooring, and thin blankets fight against winter winds that dip below freezing. No one chooses to sleep on concrete, unless every safer option has already slipped away. Many here are escaping trauma. Mothers fleeing violence, veterans wrestling with old memories, and young people pushed out of foster care with nowhere to turn. Although shelters exist, strict curfews, lack of privacy, family separation, and limited capacity force many to return to the streets where at least they can stay together. In this maze of survival, Mia, a mother waiting months for stable housing, sleeps beside her teenage son near Lehigh Avenue. "People pass by like we're invisible," she says, her voice heavy with exhaustion. Not far away sits Raphael, a veteran gripping a small thermos that brings back memories of normal mornings before life unraveled. These faces reveal how quickly a stable life can collapse, and how difficult it becomes to climb back once someone falls this far. When sidewalks turn into final addresses, it forces us to ask, how do we allow ordinary people to reach this point? At US Homeless Stories, we bring these truths into the light so they can't be ignored. Which part of Kensington's reality impacts you the most, and why? Leave a comment below. And if you want to follow more real stories from America's forgotten streets, hit subscribe to US Homeless Stories. 7. When hope is buried under tent roofs. When you walk under the Kensington tracks, you feel a strange stillness pressing against the air, a silence heavy enough to make you understand how hope gets buried beneath these tent roofs. The rows of tarps lining the sidewalks aren't just makeshift shelters. They are reminders of a system stretched thin. Even with expanded outreach, more detox openings, and new mental health programs in 2025, the reality beneath the nylon remains harsh. Long wait lists, overcrowded shelters, and understaffed clinics leave thousands suspended in survival mode, caught between wanting help and not being able to reach it. Inside the tents, the conditions speak louder than any statistic. Rain leaks through patches, soaking blankets for days. Winter wind cuts through the fabric and makes every night feel twice as long. Clean water and restrooms come inconsistently, while untreated illnesses linger because clinics can't keep up. In this kind of environment, even maintaining basic hygiene becomes an exhausting battle. Hope doesn't vanish, it suffocates slowly under the weight of unmet needs. But the emotional burden hits even harder. Waking up every morning knowing society barely notices you wears down the spirit in ways few can imagine. A tent becomes both protection and proof of how fragile life has become. People here learn to live with uncertainty. Will there be food today? Will the tent hold through another storm? Will outreach teams actually have openings this month? These questions bury hope deeper every day. Yet even in these dark corners, resilience refuses to fade. People keep their spaces tidy, share what little they have, and look out for each other in the simplest ways. These small gestures reveal a powerful truth. Hope can be buried, but it does not die. Kensington's tent communities remind us that homelessness isn't only a lack of shelter. It's a reflection of systemic gaps and a test of compassion. Which part of these hidden realities makes you think the most about what people endure here? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if you believe these stories should continue to be told, hit subscribe to US Homeless Stories so you never miss the next chapter. 8. A wake-up call from America's own streets. Sometimes the most urgent warnings in America don't come from news anchors or politicians. They rise quietly from the streets, where people fight to make it through another night. In Philadelphia, Narcan kits and emergency responses save lives, but they also expose a painful truth. Survival is happening every day, yet real recovery remains out of reach for thousands who wake up to cold sidewalks and unstable shelters. Walk further, and the stories repeat nationwide. A father sleeping in his car after losing his job. A young woman pushed out of her apartment as rents climbed beyond reach. A former business owner rebuilding after medical bills emptied everything. These struggles are not rare. They reflect a housing crisis so deep that millions of Americans simply cannot find a place they can afford. What makes this even darker is how quietly it unfolds. No spotlight, no audience, just families trying to stay warm, teens walking alone with nowhere to go, and individuals whispering fears into the cold, hoping tomorrow doesn't break them again. This is happening on America's own streets, right beside wealthy districts glowing with comfort and opportunity. And yet, even in this darkness, resilience refuses to disappear. People keep holding on, hoping someone will listen. At US Homeless Stories, we are here to make sure these voices aren't lost. If something in Philadelphia's story moved you, tell me in the comments. Your thoughts matter. And if you want to keep following the real stories America overlooks, hit subscribe to US Homeless Stories so you never miss the truth happening right outside the frame. Nine. Conclusion, hope, and call to action. As we conclude our journey through Philadelphia's overlooked streets, one truth rises above everything else. The human spirit can bend under tremendous weight, yet it still fights to stay alive. Behind every tarp and tent is someone carrying a personal history marked by loss, disappointment, and quiet resilience. Spending time in these neighborhoods forces you to see more than a crisis. You begin to recognize individuals with their own dreams, talents, regrets, and hopes that refuse to fade. The people here live with an uncertainty most of us will never know. Long nights filled with cold, long days without direction, long stretches without feeling seen. Some haven't had a real conversation in months. Others carry emotional wounds deeper than anything visible on their skin. These truths rarely appear in the news, yet they define the daily reality of thousands. And still, small sparks of compassion shine through the darkness. A shared meal, a borrowed jacket, a kind word passed between strangers. These simple gestures don't erase the struggle, but they prove that humanity still breathes in places society has forgotten. Philadelphia's contrast, its historic pride against its suffering streets, forces us to question what progress really means. A city's greatness cannot be measured by buildings alone, but by how it treats the people living in its shadows. That's why US Homeless Stories continues documenting these lives, to make sure no one fades into silence, to honor their resilience, and to encourage all of us to care more deeply. Which part of this journey made the strongest impression on you, and why? Leave your thoughts below. I read every comment. If you want to follow these real stories and support this mission, subscribe to US Homeless Stories and stay with us for the next chapter.
tough out here, right, Bob?
I'm crying, you know I'm crying.
No one's not gonna sit here and beg you.
Welcome to U.S. Homeless Stories. In the dim back streets of Philadelphia, where the streetlights barely hold back the dark, life flickers between hope and collapse. This is Kensington, the ground zero that U.S. Homeless Stories steps into, a neighborhood once powered by factories and family pride, now carrying the heaviest wounds of the city. In 2024, Philadelphia recorded 5,191 people experiencing homelessness on a single winter night, a 9.8% rise, with unsheltered neighbors in Kensington alone surging 38.2%, according to the city's point-in-time count. Those numbers aren't just data. They're the cold breath rising from tents under the L at dawn, the silent crowds lining up for the one shower truck, the sidewalks that tell stories long before anyone speaks. This isn't just homelessness. This is a place where rent passes $1,950, while thousands survive on less than $1,000 a month. This is where the American dream loses its shine, and where U.S. Homeless Stories walks in so the truth isn't buried in silence. Welcome to Kensington, where the city's heartbeat is loudest in the shadows, and every step reveals a story the nation can't ignore. 1. The daily reality of unsheltered life in Kensington. Morning on Kensington Avenue doesn't start with comfort. It starts with the cold that claws straight through your bones, with tents shaking violently in the wind, and with people frantically packing up their blankets before a sweep comes and trashes everything they own. By sunrise, breath hangs frozen in the air like smoke, and the sidewalk is already drenched in raw exhaustion. A mother desperately warms her infant's tiny purple hands with her own body heat. A man who barely slept watches his backpack like it's the last piece of himself he still controls. There is no privacy here, just survival. Lived out in full view of the world that keeps walking past. Outreach workers move slowly, gently, offering blankets, Narcan, coffee, and sometimes just a few words that scream you still matter. A simple, "How's your morning?" can crack open a face that has forgotten kindness even exists. The cold this year is murderous. Nights plunge into the 20s, and cardboard used as insulation turns soaked and useless before midnight. People tie plastic bags inside their shoes to keep their socks from freezing solid. Others huddle around steam vents, deadly places, but warmer than the concrete that wants to kill them. Shelters fill instantly. Waiting lists crawl forward so slowly that some die before their name is ever called. A single backpack can hold life-saving medication, a family photo, clean socks, or the only ID a person has left. Losing it can erase months, years, an entire existence. This is the truth of Kensington right now. Survival is physical, emotional, and brutally human. Every single day is a fight to stay warm, to stay alive, and to stay seen before the city forgets you completely. So let me ask you, dead serious, if you had to sleep outside tonight on that ice-cold concrete, what item would you protect above all else? Leave your answer below, and don't forget to subscribe to U.S. Homeless Stories so we can keep dragging this crisis into the light where it can never be ignored again. 2. A neighborhood swallowed by addiction. Kensington didn't fall in one night. It was bled out slowly, decade after decade, factory by factory, job by job, until the whole place finally buckled under the weight. In the early 2000s, heroin was already here, but you could still find blocks where kids played, where grandmothers swept their steps and called you by name, where people swore tomorrow would be better. Then fentanyl landed like a bomb. Cheap, merciless, unstoppable. It didn't knock on doors. It kicked them down and dragged whole families out screaming. People who had held on for years suddenly vanished into their own shadows. Lifelong residents still choke up telling it. It was like watching your brother die in slow motion while he looked you dead in the eye and couldn't hear you anymore. 2025 is worse. The dope keeps mutating faster than anyone can save you from it. Xylazine rots flesh from the inside. Medetomidine drops bodies like someone flipped an off switch. Almost 40% of the bags tested this fall had it. I've stood under the L and watched people frozen mid-step, heads hanging, spines folded in half like broken umbrellas. Breath still coming in slow clouds while SEPTA trains roar overhead and nobody even slows down. But the real killer isn't the chemicals. It's the loneliness that lets the chemicals win. It's the empty stoops where neighbors used to sit, the phones that stopped ringing, the funerals that became monthly, the moment someone realizes nobody is coming to pull them out. And still, even here, humanity leaks through the cracks. A guy shares his last cigarette like it's gold. A woman's face lights up for half a second when someone remembers her real name. A stranger hands over half a hot meal and says, "Eat before it gets cold." These are not addicts. These are people who once had dreams loud enough to wake them up smiling. They still do, buried under the weight, but still there. That's why US Homeless Stories keeps coming back. Because every bent-over body on that track used to be somebody's baby, somebody's best friend, somebody's whole world. And they still deserve to be seen as human before they're seen as gone. If this hit you in the chest, subscribe right now. We're not leaving these streets until the rest of the country is forced to look. 3. The bent figures on Kensington streets. Walk Kensington Avenue in 2025, and the air itself feels too heavy to breathe. Before your brain catches up, your body already knows. Something is crushing people right in front of you. They're folded in half, spines curved like snapped branches, heads dangling inches from the pavement. The infamous Kensington lean. It's not a pose. It's what happens when life has been slamming down on someone's back for years, and their body finally says enough. Sunrise crawls over the L tracks and spotlights them. Men slumped over rusted shopping carts that hold every single thing they still own. Women curled over suitcases, like they're shielding a child that isn't there. Fingers twitching in fingerless gloves, chests barely moving. One hit of the new mix, medatmidine, tranq, fentanyl roulette, and 60 seconds later, they're statues. I've watched a guy freeze mid-step, cigarette still burning between his knuckles, for 45 minutes straight, while SEPTA trains screamed overhead and nobody even tapped the brakes. They don't choose this. Their bodies just surrender first. But watch closer. A stranger grabs a collapsing man under the arms and props him against a wall before his skull kisses concrete. A volunteer slides a coat over a woman's shoulders, like she's tucking in her own sister. Someone whispers, "Stay with me, bro," even when the eyes staring back are already somewhere else. These bent figures were little kids once. They blew out birthday candles. They had favorite songs, first kisses, jobs they bragged about. Life didn't erase them. It just piled on until standing straight became impossible. US Homeless Stories keeps coming back because every single one of them is still somebody's child, somebody's reason the sun came up this morning. And nobody should be left folded on the sidewalk like trash. So tell me the truth. If one of these bent-over bodies was on your block right now, would you stop? Or would you keep scrolling on your phone and step around them? Drop "I see you" in the comments if you'd stop. Then hit subscribe, because every new follower forces one more person to look at what we've all been trained to ignore. We're not stopping until the whole country has to see. Faces slowly losing their light. Walk Kensington long enough in 2025, and you learn to read the stillness. It's not sleep, not rest. It's a soul that's been screaming so long it forgot how to stop. You see it under the L at 7 a.m. in the alleys where rohums sag like they're mourning too. Eyes half-masked even in brutal sunlight. Cheeks collapsed inward from weeks of one sandwich a day. Skin gone gray and paper thin from frostbite scars. Infections nobody treats. And the kind of bone-deep stress that locks your jaw until your teeth crack. These faces aren't aging. They're erasing. I've watched a woman in her 30s look 60 because the cold never left her body after last February. I've seen a man's eyes go flat the exact week his last friend overdosed, like someone reached in and turned the lights down low forever. That's what invisibility does. It hollows you out from the inside until even your reflection stops recognizing you. But then comes the moment that rips your heart open. A nurse hands a guy clean socks, and his shoulders actually rise half an inch, like someone just removed a 1,000-pound backpack he'd been carrying for years. A woman steps out of the shower truck, hair dripping, and the lines around her eyes soften for the first time in months. She touches her own cheek like she's meeting a stranger she used to love. One man got his new ID, looked at the photo, and started sobbing so hard he couldn't speak. Just kept repeating, "That's me. That's still me." That light isn't gone. It's buried under layers of trauma, dope, and being treated like garbage. But it's still there, waiting for one person to look close enough to call it back. US Homeless Stories keep showing up because we've seen that spark reignite too many times to ever believe someone is too far gone. Dignity doesn't die, it just gets starved. And all it takes is one hot meal, one real conversation, one person refusing to look away, and the light starts climbing back into their eyes. If watching that light fight to come back wrecks you the way it wrecks us, hit subscribe right now. Because as long as there's even a flicker left in these faces, we're not letting the darkness win. 5. Support policies, struggling to keep pace. Philadelphia keeps announcing new plans, new funding, new bold steps. But in 2025, Kensington sidewalks don't read press releases. They feel every broken promise in their bones. The Kensington plan was supposed to stop the bleeding. More prevention, more treatment, real intervention. Instead, people are still waking up under the L, wondering if tonight will finally be the night the city remembers they exist. New low-barrier beds opened this year. Great, except the line forms at 4 a.m. And half the people at the front still get turned away with, "Come back tomorrow." Tomorrow is a luxury when your fingers are going black from frostbite. Housing vouchers? They hand them out like golden tickets, then watch people rot on wait lists for 6, 8, 12 months while landlords say, "No," inspections crawl, and paperwork disappears. I've met men clutching vouchers in one hand and all their belongings in the other, sleeping on the same corner for 200 nights straight because the system moves like molasses and hypothermia moves like lightning. Treatment beds expanded. Congratulations. Except the dope mutated again. Medetomidine and tranq withdrawals are so violent that even seasoned staff are burning out, walking out, breaking down in the parking lot because they can't watch one more person seize for 12 hours straight with nothing they're allowed to give. Harm reduction crews are straight-up superheroes, sprinting block to block, hitting 8 overdoses before lunch, emptying Narcan boxes faster than the city can restock them. They save lives every hour. And still, permanent supportive housing, the one thing proven to end this nightmare for good, grew by fewer than 100 units all year. 100. That wouldn't even clear one single block under the tracks. Policies crawl, suffering sprints, and every day the gap widens. Another person loses the fight. Tell me honestly, if you were sleeping in 22-degree rain holding a voucher that doesn't work yet, how many more tomorrows could you survive? Drop "I'm here for the truth" in the comments, if you're sick of excuses too. Then smash subscribe, because US homeless stories will keep screaming what the politicians won't say out loud. People are dying while the help moves in slow motion. We're not slowing down until the system finally runs as fast as the crisis does. 6. The cleanups that clean nothing. Dawn on Kensington Avenue 2025. Sirens, floodlights, and the low growl of front loaders rolling in like tanks. They call it an encampment resolution. The people who wake up to it call it getting erased. White hazmat suits march down the block, zip-tying tents still warm from bodies, tossing sleeping bags, birth certificates, insulin pens, a kid's stuffed bear, a cracked frame with a dead mother's smile, straight into the maw of a dump truck. One sweep, one load, one entire life reduced to biohazard waste. Cops stand shoulder to shoulder, so nobody can run back for the last thing that proves they ever existed. Outreach yells over the engines, "We have a bed!" Except the bed doesn't exist, or it's across town, or it's only for tonight. By 10 a.m., the sidewalk is Instagram clean. The mayor posts a before and after, like it's a home renovation show. Captions about public safety and restoring dignity. Meanwhile, the people who were just bulldozed are limping 3 blocks east, dragging what little they salvaged, setting up the exact same camp under the next overpass before lunch. Same tents. Same frostbite. Different zip code. 2024 alone, millions of dollars spent on these sweeps. Result? Unsheltered numbers barely budged. Mother lost the urn with her daughter's ashes and still hasn't stopped crying. A diabetic watched his cooler of insulin get crushed because policy. A guy in early recovery lost the tent that had been his first stable spot in 2 years and relapsed before sunset. Parents 2 blocks over find fresh needles in the school playground the very next week. Store owners board up windows because the foot traffic vanished, then reappears somewhere else like a shell game nobody wins. Every other major city that actually cut homelessness did it the same way. Housing first, permanent supportive units, low-barrier shelters that don't kick you out for using, outreach teams that show up every single day. Not once every fiscal quarter with a garbage truck. Until Philadelphia chooses people over photo ops, these cleanups will keep cleaning exactly. 7. Churches and volunteers, serving meals every single day. Kensington survives on more than food. It survives on the people who refuse to look away. For decades, churches and volunteer groups have stepped into the gaps left by broken systems, becoming the neighborhood's unofficial backbone. In a place where shelters fill up before sunset and outreach vans can't meet the demand, these faith-based kitchens and street teams operate like a heartbeat, steady, quiet, and impossible to replace. Their work doesn't happen in polished offices. It happens in small back kitchens where pots boil over, and vans stacked with trays of pasta, and on sidewalks where a folding table becomes a lifeline. St. Aubert Juan Francis Inn is the anchor of this mission. Since 1979, they have served meals every single day of the year. Christmas, snowstorms, heat waves, even during blackouts. In 2025, they're feeding between 450 and 600 guests a night, many of whom they've known for years. But what makes the place sacred isn't just the food. It's the dignity. Guests are greeted by name. People who haven't eaten in days get second portions without hesitation. When someone is trembling from withdrawal or exhaustion, they're given a warm seat and a moment of calm that the streets don't offer. Over time, those daily gestures become a thread of hope that keeps people going. The Sunday Love Project brings the same spirit every weekend, arriving with hot meals, water, hygiene kits, and donated coats. Parents pull their children close while volunteers kneel down to hand meals directly to kids, making sure everyone eats before the line ends. A few blocks away, Mother of Mercy House opens its storefront 6 days a week, offering showers, coffee, socks, and a rare sense of safety. Inside, conversations happen slowly, without the fear of being rushed or judged. Rock Ministries adds another layer of care by turning its church gym into a refuge, where neighborhood kids play basketball while their parents share meals, pick up groceries, or simply rest. The building hums with laughter, sneakers squeaking on the floor, sounds that remind the community that joy still exists here. What makes all these groups extraordinary is their consistency. Retired nurses, college students, and grandmothers in worn sneakers keep showing up, week after week, year after year, because the people they serve become part of their own story. Have you ever felt the kind of relief that washes over you when someone places a warm plate in your hands and treats you like you matter? In Kensington, that moment can mean everything, and it's the reason this neighborhood's heart is still beating. If this moved you, drop thank you in the comments for every volunteer still out there right now. Then subscribe to US Homeless Stories so we never let the world forget who's really holding this community together. The final message. This fight is ours together. Kensington is the kind of place that shifts something deep inside you. Not predictions and because of the dramatic moments people expect to see, but because of the quiet, heavy ones most never witness. When you spend enough time on these streets, you begin to notice the small details that stay with you long after you've gone home. You hear the shuffle of early morning footsteps as people gather their belongings before a cleanup team arrives. You hear someone murmuring a tired prayer over a cup of instant coffee that barely warms their hands. You hear soft crying behind a tarp when someone realizes they don't have enough layers for another cold night. These are the moments that don't make headlines, but they do carve themselves into your memory. And they make you ask a question many avoid. If I were the one lying on this pavement tonight, who would stop to care? Yet even in all that weight, hope has a way of pushing stubbornly through the cracks. I've watched a man with frozen fingertips hand his only scarf to someone shivering worse than he was. I've seen volunteers drag heavy bags of blankets through icy rain, refusing to leave until every person had something warm. I've seen a teenager crouch on the curb to braid her mother's hair, trying to give her a moment of dignity after a night that took more from them than they could speak aloud. These moments are quiet, easy to miss, but they carry a truth stronger than any statistic. When everything else fails, compassion is still here, choosing to show up. The battle in Kensington isn't simple. Some people are fighting old wounds, some are running from fresh ones, and many are just trying to stay alive until sunrise. But the neighborhood also shows what resilience really looks like. Outreach workers walking block after block in freezing wind, neighbors sharing meals made from whatever they had left, church teams calling people by name because being remembered can be the first step to feeling human again. These acts form a kind of shield, fragile, imperfect, but real. Philadelphia calls itself the city of brotherly love, and along these sidewalks that love shows up in raw, unfiltered ways. It's not pretty, it's not polished, but it's sincere. That's why U.S. Homeless Stories continues returning, not to magnify pain, but to give truth at the space it deserves. Because these lives matter. These stories matter. And no one should fade into silence. What part of Kensington's reality hit you the hardest? And why do you think these stories stay hidden for so long? Drop your thoughts below. I want to read what you feel. And if you believe these voices deserve to be heard, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so we can keep walking these streets together, shining light where the world too often looks away.
Yeah, take this too. Take care. Bye, guys.
I'll take two. I'll take purple one.
Ready to go? Yeah. Uh-huh. We go around.
And I have my foot over there, so I'll give her this one.
Still the story of drugs. In Los Angeles, people often say that homelessness is a problem of rents, of inflation, of inequality. But when you step into the endless tent cities here, the most prominent truth is still an old but never fading story. Drugs are the biggest trigger that pushes people out of normal life. Fentanyl, meth, heroin, substances that, once hooked, have almost no way back, have turned LA into the epicenter of America's largest homelessness crisis. Drug users lose jobs, homes, relationships, and then the ability to stand up on their own. When everything in their lives falls at once, the sidewalk becomes the only place they can fall. In 2025, an estimated 72,308 people in Los Angeles County will experience homelessness each night. Of those, tens of thousands, nearly 47,000 lack a permanent place to live. While that number is down about 4% from the previous year, that doesn't mean the crisis is over. Every night, people still huddle in the cold on the streets. In areas like Skid Row, Los Angeles, once known as the epicenter of homelessness, tents and old cars sit side by side. The smells of drugs, trash, and despair mix. Support systems exist. Shelters, and homicide reduction programs. But clearly they're not enough to save everyone. The biggest problem is addressing drug addiction. And where there's drug use, there's homelessness. And the policies that subsidize the homeless have inadvertently made the situation worse. Los Angeles is becoming a symbol of America's worst homelessness crisis. The scale of the homeless crisis. Los Angeles' homelessness crisis isn't just severe, it's collapsing in ways most people never witness. Behind the billboards and luxury towers lies a hidden world unraveling in slow motion. When the 2025 count reported 72,308 individuals, it barely touched the truth. Anyone walking the streets at dawn sees the real picture. The crisis is spreading faster, pulling people past their breaking point. What makes it terrifying is how quickly normal life can vanish. Many sleeping on sidewalks today were paying rent last year. When housing costs swallow more than half a person's income, the smallest disruption becomes devastating. A layoff, a medical bill, a sudden rent hike. These moments hit like silent earthquakes, shattering lives that once felt stable. The fall is fast, and the climb back up feels impossible. Across LA's vast landscape, entire blocks have become survival zones. Under freeway overpasses, the air grows heavy with exhaustion. People huddle inside torn tents, while others sleep against cold concrete wrapped in sun-bleached blankets. Along the Hollywood to downtown corridor, every sidewalk tells the same story. People clutching the last pieces of their identity, backpacks, old photos, worn shoes, hoping they won't lose them overnight. Emergency crews witness what the city tries to ignore. Last year, more than 23,000 calls came from homelessness-related crises, illness, danger, human limits pushed too far. Shelters overflow within minutes, leaving hundreds outside with nowhere to go. The cold nights are the worst. Wind cuts through the alleys, and people try to sleep sitting upright to avoid slipping into dangerous exhaustion. This crisis keeps shifting, fueled by unbearable housing costs, fragile mental health systems, and gaps too wide for people to cross. These aren't just statistics, they're snapshots of a city quietly failing its most vulnerable. If these truths matter to you, hit subscribe to US Homeless Stories. Your support keeps these realities from being forgotten. The price of a high. Addiction in Los Angeles isn't just a crisis. It's a human story unfolding in the shadows of a city built on dreams. In 2025, more than 42% of people living on the streets were battling substance use. These aren't faceless figures. They're people who once held jobs, paid rent, had goals, and believed their lives were on track. Then came an injury, an eviction, a lost paycheck, or a moment of emotional collapse that pushed everything off balance. Walk through Skid Row, and the reality hits hard. Paramedics answer close to 30 overdose calls a day. Outreach teams hand out naloxone constantly, trying to keep people alive long enough to have another chance. You see men and women shaking on sidewalks, trying to push through withdrawal, or leaning against cold walls waiting for help that feels forever out of reach. The weight of addiction shows on their faces, exhaustion, fear, and a kind of loneliness that's hard to describe. The city spends more than $1.5 billion a year on addiction and emergency services, but the demand overwhelms the system. With fewer than 3,000 detox beds for tens of thousands who need treatment, wait lists stretch for weeks. For someone barely holding on, that delay can mean slipping deeper into danger. Most didn't end up here because they made reckless choices. They ended up here because support came too late, or life simply hit too hard. Yet even in the middle of all this, hope still exists. Mobile treatment units reach thousands each year, offering same-day help. Peer support workers, people who've walked the same hard road, build trust one conversation at a time. They show that recovery is possible, even when someone feels lost. These stories aren't meant to shock. They're meant to remind us that every person fighting addiction has value, and every life deserves another chance. If you want to follow these real, unfiltered stories from America's streets, make sure you subscribe to US Homeless Stories. There's more truth to uncover, more voices to hear, and more lives worth understanding. Lives lost in the heart of the city. In Los Angeles, some lives don't just slip through the cracks, they vanish into them. These are fragile human stories held together by almost nothing, where one setback can push a person straight onto the streets. Walk a few blocks and you'll see the version of LA most people avoid. Worn-out bodies on the pavement, people fighting silent battles, and others sinking into addictions that slowly drain away the person they used to be. This isn't Hollywood. This is the real city, raw, cold, and brutally easy to ignore. MacArthur Park shows this contrast sharply. On one side, people go about their day as if everything is normal. Just steps away, a man sits on a torn blanket, eyes unfocused, rocking through a fog he can't escape. He didn't start life here. Something pushed him there. Job loss, heartbreak, trauma, or a pill that turned into something stronger. Tragedy doesn't knock. It just arrives and takes everything. Under the Hollywood freeway, where hundreds of thousands of cars fly by without looking down, roughly 400 people sleep between concrete pillars. Some fight every day to stay clean. Others slide deeper into addiction because sobriety means facing pain they're not ready to confront. Behind every shaking hand and blank stare is someone who once had a life, a routine, a place in this world. In Highland Park and Eagle Rock, rising rents push longtime residents into tents, cars, and alleyways. These aren't people who gave up. Many worked steady jobs, paid rent, raised kids. But one medical bill, one broken down car, one bad month, and they join the thousands who fall into homelessness every year. The line between stability and collapse is razor thin. This is the Los Angeles no postcard will ever show, a shining city hiding thousands of fading lives beneath its surface. How does a place this bright allow so many people to disappear in the shadows? Which part of this reality hits you hardest? The fragile lives hanging on, or the ones being pulled under by addiction? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to US Homeless Stories for more unfiltered truths from America's streets.
Because of these people, you don't understand.
Sidewalks, smelling of despair. Los Angeles' sidewalks don't just look rough, many of them smell like a crisis the city can't hide anymore. Anyone who has walked through certain blocks of downtown, Skid Row, or under the 101 at sunrise knows that the air hits you before the sight does. It's a mix of stale urine, trash fermenting under the heat, and the unmistakable scent of people forced to live without bathrooms, showers, or a moment of privacy. It's the kind of smell that stops you mid-stride, not because you're disgusted, but because it reminds you that real human beings are trying to survive in places no one should ever have to call home. Daily life on these sidewalks is brutally exposed. People brush their teeth next to storm drains. They heat canned food over small makeshift burners. Every task, eating, sleeping, cleaning, existing, is done in full view of a world that often pretends not to see. This isn't a metaphor. This is the real Los Angeles that hundreds of thousands drive past every day without ever stopping to understand. In Hollywood, while tourists chase perfect photos, the reality just a few steps away is almost surreal. Beneath the neon lights and celebrity footprints, nearly 200 people line the sidewalks at night. The contrast is so sharp, it feels unreal, like two different universes smashed together on the same block. For many viewers, this is where the shock begins. Learning that a city famous for dreams also has streets that smell like hopelessness baked into concrete. Sanitation crews haul away 500 tons of waste every month, but they'll be the first to tell you it's never enough. When a county of millions offers only around 1,500 public bathrooms, the streets become the bathroom. And the smell becomes the message a society didn't mean to write, but can't erase. Under the towering skyscrapers of downtown, where nearly 3,000 people gather nightly, daily routines unfold in plain sight. People line up at food trucks not selling meals, but handing out survival. Mobile hygiene buses offer showers that feel like lifelines. Volunteers try to keep pace, but the sidewalks always seem one step ahead, filling faster than help can arrive. These sidewalks are loud, messy, chaotic, but they're also honest. They expose the parts of America most people never talk about. And through US Homeless Stories, we bring that truth to anyone willing to face it. If these raw realities matter to you, hit subscribe. The more people who see the truth, the harder it becomes for society to ignore it. Root causes of the homeless crisis. Los Angeles didn't wake up one morning and suddenly find itself in a homelessness crisis. This disaster grew slowly, silently, like a crack spreading across glass until the whole surface shattered. The truth is uncomfortable. Thousands didn't fall because they were weak. They fell because the system kept pushing until they had nothing left to hold on to. Housing costs turned into a silent executioner. Rent didn't just go up, it skyrocketed. People who once paid $200 suddenly faced demands of over $2,300 for the same rundown apartment. No warning, no support. Just a city where your entire life can collapse with a single envelope slipped under your door. In a place where most residents don't even have $500 saved, one broken car, one medical bill, one missed paycheck becomes the first step toward the street. Affordable housing could have been the safety net, but it barely exists. LA needs nearly 500,000 affordable homes, yet year after year, empty lots collect dust, while luxury towers rise like glass monuments to inequality. Neighborhoods transform overnight, pushing long-time residents out of the communities that raised them. Mental health failures deepen the fall. Thousands walk the streets carrying invisible storms, but long-term care is almost non-existent. With fewer than 3,000 psychiatric beds for millions, people cycle in and out of short hospital stays, never receiving the stability they desperately need. Addiction often enters after everything else collapses. When someone loses their home, family, or identity, substances become a temporary escape. But with months-long wait lists for treatment, people remain trapped in a cycle they can't break alone. Inequality determines who falls hardest, and a fragmented system ensures many never climb back. This is the truth Los Angeles hides behind its skyline. Homelessness isn't a moment. It's a series of broken systems pulling people under, until the city simply stops seeing them. Those holding lanterns in the dark. Across Los Angeles, there are people who step into the shadows long before the rest of the city even stirs. They're not celebrities or public officials. They're regular people who simply refuse to walk past suffering. While traffic roars and crowds move on autopilot, these quiet helpers move through alleys, underpasses, and crowded sidewalks carrying warm meals, clean water, and simple words of encouragement. Their presence reminds those living on the streets that they're still seen, still valued. In Skid Row, outreach workers call people by name as they check on tents and makeshift shelters. For someone who's been ignored for years, hearing their own name can feel like a lifeline. In Echo Park and MacArthur Park, volunteers hand out socks, hygiene kits, and blankets. Small things, but essential when you're trying to survive outside. These volunteers show up in the rain, in the heat, and through long nights when others would rather look away. Faith-based groups keep their doors open late, offering counseling circles and safe spaces for people who have nowhere else to turn. The rooms are often simple: folding chairs, donated blankets, coffee brewed strong, but the compassion inside them is powerful. Meanwhile, new technology helps track who needs medical attention or a shelter bed, preventing vulnerable people from being forgotten in the chaos of the streets. Then come the stories that stay with you. Denise, a former social worker, now spends every weekend walking Hollywood Boulevard with warm meals and a calm voice. Her mission began after meeting a woman who'd been living under an overpass for years. Now she mentors volunteers who want to help but don't know where to start. And Mark, a retired firefighter, drives a mobile shower truck through neighborhoods where dignity is often lost. He says one quiet "thank you" after a shower is enough to keep him going. These are the lanterns in the dark, ordinary people who shine light where the city often feels its heaviest. They prove that real change doesn't always begin with big systems or big budgets. Sometimes it starts with a single person choosing compassion over indifference, again and again. What do you think drives someone to keep showing up for strangers, even when the problems seem too big to fix? Share your thoughts below, and if you want more real, unfiltered stories from America's streets, make sure to subscribe to US Homeless Stories so you never miss what's truly happening out there. Innovations and hope. Los Angeles is still fighting to pull people back from the edge, and every new effort comes from a human need, someone cold, exhausted, or running out of chances. Tiny home villages now hold more than 850 units, each offering a bed, a light, and a locking door. For someone who slept on concrete the night before, that small space feels like a new start. Over 65% of residents eventually move into longer-term housing, showing how even brief stability can reset a life. The streets, though, still reveal the harshest realities. People walk with untreated wounds, fight illness alone, and survive nights that cut deeper than hunger. Mobile clinics have become a quiet revolution. 15 medical vans make over 200 weekly stops and treat about 6,500 people a year, while another 20,000 rely on telehealth for care without judgment. Sometimes one honest conversation is enough to keep someone going. Hope also arrives through work. Programs like LA Rise send job counselors straight into encampments. Even a small paycheck can bring someone back to themselves, especially when paired with stable housing. Communities are stepping up. Volunteer apps tracked over 30,000 acts of kindness this year. Meals shared, blankets delivered, rides offered late at night. Neighborhood resource bridges now help residents and outreach teams solve problems person by person. It's imperfect, but human. These efforts show the fight isn't lost. They reveal a city still trying because the alternative is letting thousands slip away unseen. If these stories matter to you, if you want more truth from America's streets, hit subscribe to support U.S. homeless stories. Together, even small lights can guide someone home. Conclusion. Los Angeles may be the city that sells the world a dream,